To deny people their human right is to challenge their very humanity. Welcome, ma'am, to our another session of Career Talks, where we provide career guidance relating to different career options. Welcome, ma'am, to our another career session. So,
Thank you.
ma'am, firstly, I would like you to introduce yourself to us.
Okay. My name is Shreya Sen. I'm pursuing a PhD in environmental migrations, and I'm basically focusing on the human rights of people who are displaced by river erosion. And the places that I'm focusing on are Malda and Murshidabad in West Bengal.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll start with the first question. So my very first question to you is, who is a human right activist?
A human rights activist is somebody who is aware of the wrongs that are being committed to human beings. This is a person who is sensitive by nature. And this is a person who is extremely aware of how people's rights, their fundamental rights, their human rights are being compromised. And this is not something which is situation specific. A human rights activist will be cognizant of rights abuse in any and every context. Yes, it can be political, it can be apolitical, whatever be it. A human rights activist is somebody who's deeply sensitive, who's deeply attuned to people's needs, their emotions, and any kind of wrongdoing that takes place to human beings. A human rights activist will be aware of and accordingly will try to agitate to make sure there's some sort of solution to that wrongdoing.
Okay, great. So my next question to you is, please share some of your experiences in this field, like how you started into this field and how it is going on.
I started basically at the master's level. Once I finished my master's, I specialized in a paper called Refugee and Forced Migration Studies. I decided to take up further research in that field. And I was in Germany for a short period of time as a visiting research fellow at the University of Bielefeld. But there I was introduced to academics and practitioners who were working actively in the field of human rights from a sociological perspective. And by being under their training and guidance, I actually got to see, how human rights research is done. So my introduction to human rights activism is through the perspective of research. It's by researching on refugee rights and the rights of migrants and forced migrants, and how we can come up with durable solutions to their problems, that I was introduced to human rights activism. So being under that training and attending lectures, attending workshops, seminars in the city that I was based in, which is Bielefeld, and near and around also, I attended a lot of academic sessions, and I was literally trained through these academic sessions to understand what human rights is, what it entails, and how we go about defending human rights. And since then, ever since I came back to India after that also, I decided to pursue a PhD in environmental migrations and human rights. And my guide, the person who's guiding my thesis, is an extremely active person when it comes to human rights and defending human rights. Her name is Paula Banerjee. She's published a lot on the subject of human rights, and she has analyzed human rights in very severe conflict situations, like armed conflict situations, and in the Northeast, in the Northwest. And it was a privilege to start my PhD under her, and it's because of her training and guidance that I'm learning every day how to analyze my PhD topic from a human rights perspective. And that's how I got introduced and initiated into this profession.
That was quite impressive. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
my next
Thank you.
question is, okay. So my next question is, what are the basic qualities does an activist must possess?
Activist has to be sensitive to the problems of people. An activist really has to feel the problems that people are suffering from on a daily basis. If you have to agitate on behalf of someone, you have to put yourself in that person's shoes and try to analyze what the situation is from that person's perspective. And of course, it's extremely important to have an idea of law. It's extremely important to have an idea of the political setup that we're living in, because on the basis of that we do our activism.
So the next question is, what is the basic eligibility criteria for becoming an activist?
You can be an activist from any field and from any academic background. You don't have to study a particular subject to become a human rights activist. You can hold a bachelor's degree in science, you can have a bachelor's degree in commerce, or you can have a bachelor's degree in political science or history. Now, I will say that having degrees in subjects like sociology, history, political science helps, because it makes you more aware of, the rights paradigm, the sort of conceptual basis on which we, through using which we do our work. But it's not mandatory to come from any particular background to be a human rights activist. You have to feel for the people, you have to be compassionate, you have to be empathetic. If you are, then you'll be a human rights activist.
The next question is that, is there any specific organization that one can join to become an activist?
No,
Any
there is no
particular
specific
organization?
organization that you need to join to become an activist. But it would be good to intern with organizations that are working on human rights issues. Now, if a person is interested in becoming a human rights professional, then interning with an organization like Action Aid or CRY, which is Child Rights in You, would be a good idea, because when you intern with an organization first, then you get a first-hand idea of how human rights are protected and the strategies, the action plans that are taken to safeguard human rights, be it child rights, be it the rights of women, vulnerable women, whatever. Interning with a human rights organization first would be the right step to go about a career in this field.
Okay. The next question is that, what kind of social work is handled by the activist, basically?
Social work includes providing relief from abuse. Human rights activists are mostly concerned with raising awareness about the wrongs that are taking place in society. But their work is not limited to agitation alone. Social workers in the field of human rights will be looking at how people who are victims of rights abuse are provided with immediate solutions to their problems, be it in the form of counseling, therapy, legal help, whatever you call it. These are the specific areas in which assistance is provided by a human rights activist.
Okay. The next question is that, when one can start aiming for this field as a career option.
You can start at the bachelor's level. I would say that starting after getting a bachelor's degree in any subject is the right time to aim for a career in human rights. Because, once you've graduated from college, you have enough knowledge about the world you're living in, the society you're living in. You have a lot of involvement in the affairs of your state. And this is the right age when, you can actually start using your creative abilities and your intellectual abilities towards, either studying about human rights or researching on human rights, or pursuing a professional route in human rights by joining a rights actor organization, interning with an organization like that.
Okay. The next question is that, yeah, it's a very interesting question. So, what are your thoughts on the current situation of human rights in India? Are there any changes in the, like?
Human rights in India is in a deplorable state. I am not scared to say this out loud. Human rights are being severely compromised in every part of India. And the fact that, we currently have a right-wing government is not helping at all. Human rights is being abused with every passing day. And the fact that India has actually signed a legal agreement like the Torture Convention and is not doing anything to uphold human rights in India is really pathetic. So, given the current state of human rights in India, it is all the more necessary for people to agitate for their rights, to agitate for the rights of vulnerable people whose rights are being compromised every single day. The need of the hour is for research work and activism to take place in the field of human rights.
Ma'am, tell us something about the future prospect of this field.
See, there's plenty that you can do career-wise in human rights. you can really advance, because human rights is global. It's not something that is limited to a country alone. And if you do research work in this field, you can pursue a PhD, you can pursue a postdoc, you can end up working with think tanks in different parts of the world. In India, of course, Delhi, Bangalore, these are good places where you can work on human rights research. Other than that, abroad, people can always apply for postdoctoral and doctoral programs abroad, higher research programs, where they get the funding that is necessary to work on human rights and topics that are related to human rights protection. Because one main problem with human rights research in India is that we don't have sufficient funding with which to do our work. We are greatly limited in terms of financial resources, which countries abroad, they give you that ammunition with which to do your research. So there's plenty that can be done. You can do a PhD, you can do a postdoc, you can join an international organization and work your way up there. Prospects are limitless, basically.
So, would you like to give some advice or guidance to the aspiring students? Anything you want to add on?
What I would like to say is to be passionate about what you do. You can always enroll for a course in human rights. You can always apply for an internship. You can always pursue higher research. But the key to becoming a human rights professional is being passionate about what you do and feeling for the people you're talking about. If you're working on refugees, then you really need to feel their pain. You need to feel the sort of conflict that they face on a day-to-day basis. If you're working with Adivasis, or if you're working with vulnerable populations, you need to put yourself in their shoes and understand what it would have been like if you had been in their position. And that is where, the understanding and the empathy starts. And once you can empathize, then solutions start coming up. We can start working towards solutions. We first need to identify with the people we are trying to protect. Then we can think of solutions to their problems.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this session.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.